hand of dice is very satisfying, isn't it? Rolling handfuls and handfuls of dice. And when you think of gamers, you don't get very far without thinking of dice of all different shapes and sizes. I remember when I used to play Warhammer, I had an Imperial Guard army, and the numbers, the buckets of D6s to roll for an Imperial Guard army shooting rapid fire with las cannons, rather. So many dice, and so many dice to roll ones and twos. And of course this is just one chance mechanism that lots of games have. There are other games that work off cards. And in particular I enjoy playing Malifaux, although I don't play that often, but I do enjoy the mechanics, which is a very poker based game, and you're flipping cards and trying to get the highest cards, but also combinations of suits. It's quite a fun mechanic, being forced to flip more cards and either pick the highest or pick the lowest. It's quite a nice mechanic. But when it came to designing the Woods and Factious Waste, I decided not to have any dice. Why did I decide not to have any dice? Surely, doesn't that make the game boring? Doesn't it make it predictable? Doesn't it mean that you know how something's going to work out, so you either do it or you don't do it? Well, partly this was a decision to just challenge myself to design something that didn't work off chance mechanisms. But partly it's to do with a kind of philosophy that actually very little happens absolutely by chance. A lot of the things that we chalk down to being luck or fate or chance are really just because decisions were made along the way, and people's abilities were or weren't up to certain things that they attempted to do. So for example, if you have a chance meeting between two people, it's not really that chance, is it? They both decided or were forced to be in a certain place at a certain time by decisions that they or other people made. So I figured that you could probably take the same thing and apply the same set of circumstances to a game. Now, of course, a precedent already exists for this. We have a very fine, very reputable diceless game already in existence, chess. It's obviously quite restrictive by the size of the board, the pieces, what they can do. If you were to calculate it, there would almost certainly be a finite number of moves that could be made in the game. It would be a huge number, but it would be finite. So I figured if you can get a game like chess that works based entirely on decisions that are made, plans that are put into place, the ability of a certain piece to do a certain thing, and whether you can make your opponent not notice something or overlook something or force them to make a decision which means that they're then able to make another decision, that's a good way of designing a game. So that's what we decided to do with the Woods. And with Factious Waste. Factious Waste was in fact the rule set that was developed first, and then we redeveloped it into the Woods. So how does it work? Well, essentially, I'm going to be doing a short series of videos updating our how to play the Woods in a little while, so that I'll give you more details. But ultimately, you've got a set of stats for each model that give you values that combine in game. So, for example, your perception stat and your courage stat combine to give you your accuracy. So the more aware you are of what's around you and the calmer you are under pressure, the better you are at shooting or throwing things, for example. Your strength and your wisdom, so the more sort of impressive you are, or the better reputation you have as someone who is wise and knowledgeable, that affects your presence, which is the stat that's used to command other troops to give orders and things. So you can kind of see how they stack together logically in that way. And the numbers are structured so that they give you a value which either works out as a score, that is a number, or they give you a range, which is a number of inches of distance, and that's then modified by other things. For example, shooting, you get benefits if your target is bigger, you get benefits if you are able to spend time aiming, you get benefits if you haven't shot at something else, you get benefits if you've stood still, you get benefits if your opponent has stood still, and all of these things combined, it sounds quite a lot, but it's quite a simple, quick calculation, especially if you've got the sheet in front of you, you just run down it very quickly. And that gives you your range, which effectively tells you if you've hit the target or not. The same thing applies with close combat. There are a number of factors like whether you're being caught off balance, so if you've been moving across rough terrain or not, is the key thing for that, or if you're fighting with a weapon that you're not used to fighting with, that can do it as well. Or if you are wide space, that is if you've got an opponent who's attacking you on a side that you can't quite reach properly, or that is unguarded and they've got a chance to get in. So these are things that they're not chance, they are absolutely conditions, but you have to keep on top of them and you have to check them. So if you're planning an attack, you have to make sure that you're attacking to your best advantage and your opponent's greatest disadvantage. If you're going to shoot, you want to make sure you're shooting when you've got a chance of hitting, so you need to have sort of worked out your best chances for hitting and estimated the distance, because there's no pre-measuring. That's an element of estimation that you've got to make thrown into it. And there are enough factors. With a game of chess, you've got to look out for the pieces that are around and what they can do. The same thing applies with a game of the Woods, except that you've got a much broader range of actions that people can choose to influence other models with. And so you've got to pick and choose how you're going to approach a scenario. That's another thing that the Woods is all very much based around objectives that you're trying to achieve. So you might think of a way that you're going to go about it that plays to your side's strength. Your opponent might be trying to do something completely different in a way that plays to their strength. And the two of you will row up against each other during the course of that, because you'll want to be stopping your opponent from doing what they're doing, as well as doing the thing that you want to do. So it's about planning, and it's about thinking, and it's about preparation and moving ahead. So it's quite a thinking game. But you can also quite often find that you come into a circumstance and you've overlooked something or you've missed something, and so things don't work out as you expected. And that almost feels like that element of chance, but it's not really chance. It's just that you haven't noticed something, or your opponent hasn't noticed something, or they haven't thought that you're going to act in the way that you have. So because there's a lot of scope in the actions, the way that characters interact with each other, when you do stuff during an activation, during a turn, is quite important. There's a lot of freedom and a lot of strategy to it, but also a lot of possibility for things to not quite go as you expect. It's not that you can just map your way through the game, because your opponent's movements and things that they do will impact and degrade your plan. So is it chance free? Well, I don't know. It depends if you count what your opponent is going to do as chance or not. Hopefully at some point I will get to play a game and kind of show you how this is working out on the table. But to those people who think that because there's no dice rolling involved, or there's no card drawing involved, there's not really a game element, I would say give it a go. On our website you'll find a quick start guide which has got a couple of scenarios and forces for playing two very quick games with both the Woods and Factious Waste, with a very basic level of of actions. The full game has a much wider range of actions and possibilities. But play one of those sample games and see how you get on. Because actually, the number of times that I've found that I've got a very solid idea of what I want to achieve and how I'm going to go about achieving it, and you find a couple of turns in you've got to really revise and change the way that you've expected to play, because suddenly sticks or spanners have been thrown in the works. Your opponent's done things that you haven't expected them to, and that's forced you to change it. So I do recommend that you download the Quick Start Guide and have a look, because diceless war games more fun than you might think.